everyone. I am the Reverend William Levewood, affectionately known as Rev Lev. I have the great honor to be the minister here at Accotink Unitarian Universalist Church. And I'm happy to welcome you this morning. Whether you're, if you're in person, this is a reminder to turn off the sound on your phone. And whether you're joining in person or online, let's all center ourselves for worship by taking a deep breath or two together. We open and welcome to the ancestral people of this land, acknowledging that our church, like all of Burke, rests on the unceded territory of the Manahoac tribe of the Great Sioux Nation. We seek healing and the realization of justice with the people of this land, who live on in their descendants, the present-day members of the Monacan Indian Nation, the Patawomic Indian Tribe of Virginia, and the Piscataway Indian Nation. We honor the ancestors as we move toward healing so that all, together, shall one day know full justice.
We rest in this love. 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 There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all we love. There is a love holding all. We rest in this love. There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all we love. There is a love holding all. We rest in this love. 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 We rest in this love.
And everybody, welcome to Accotink Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm Judy Robison. My pronouns are she, her. I'm happy to be your worship associate today. If you aren't new to Accotink, look around. Do you see people you haven't met or you haven't spoken to in a while? These people like you and they want to meet you. Help us live up to our mission to be a welcoming and inclusive spiritual home for all by reaching out and making a connection. By visiting this congregation, newcomers are in a transition moment, and people in transitions are more open to new friendships. That means that your new best friend might be here this morning, and this is your chance to get to know them before someone else does. Whether you're a longtime member or a newcomer or something in between, we encourage you to stay for our social hour online and in person immediately after the service. We're so delighted that you joined us here today. Welcome.
I've been meaning to, sometimes the worship associate doesn't even say this part of the welcome, right? Because it's such an odd thing to say, that moment when the worship associate says, these people like you and they want to meet you. I wrote that because, and we say it every week, because there's studies that show that human beings assume that other people don't like them, and then they're nervous to initiate conversation, to meet each other, to get to know each other, when actually the studies show that 9 out of 10 times at least, the other person likes you and is just and is waiting for you to initiate because they think you don't like them, right? But we rest in this love. So next Sunday we have a oh my gosh, hello, all the way from Djibouti, from East Africa over here. Wonderful to have you. What an appropriate day. Multi-generational service is normally on the first Sunday of the month, but it snowed and we didn't know if it would snow again, and so we moved it to next Sunday. So next Sunday is our multi-generational service, which is also the kickoff of our annual pledge drive, the theme of which is building a house for hope. So next Sunday, we're going to look at what it means to build a house for hope. We're even going to make our own houses of hope next Sunday. Then the following Sunday, to close out the month as we explore embodying resilience, we have one of our ensemble services. That's when some of you, 3 or 4 of you, share reflections on the monthly theme or on a particular aspect of the monthly theme. So I hope you'll come to hear the words to live by that your fellow Accotinkers are going to share on that Sunday. Those are always some of our best attended Sundays. So I hope you'll enjoy that. Which gets us to this week. This Sunday, we're really exploring the power of the ostinato. That's, and also the interlocking polyrhythmic counterpoint that you find particularly in West African music, particularly in the Afrobeat music of Nigerian musician Fela Kuti. That term Afrobeat is actually named, he created the form, Fela Kuti did. If you hear the word Afrobeats, that's the more up-to-date, people riffing and taking the next generation, taking it to the next level. And because Fela Kuti was given the Lifetime Achievement Award this week by the Grammys, which I didn't know was going to happen. Like I was going to talk about Fela Kuti, this was scheduled months ago. And like on Monday, Fela Kuti was given the Lifetime Achievement Award by the Grammys, the first African to ever receive that particular award. And because of that, the podcast that inspired and informs this, my reflection later, put out another episode that looks at how Western music uses counterpoint and how Fela Kuti uses counterpoint. The short version is that classical Western music does it horizontally. You have a theme and then you have variations progressing over time, whereas those theme and variations are stacked on top of each other in Fela Kuti's music, creating an amazing tapestry that you can live in. So that's enough. Let's invite up Evie Fuller as part of our observance of our season of nonviolence to say our chalice lighting words.
Nonviolence is a Weapon of the Strong by Mahatma Gandhi. And I probably said that wrong.
And Judy's going to physically light the chalice for us.
And though the journey is long, the destination is near, the troubles wait at every turn. I know I can go on.
Please be seated. My name is Michelle Anderson, and I am the Children and Youth Spiritual Development Director. I use the pronouns she and her. And before I tell you, start our story today, I wanted to let you know that this is the last week for our cards of love that we're sending to immigrants and people who support immigrants in Texas. So the basket and the tables is in the back. Feel free to make a card during our coffee hour today and just put it in the basket so I can send it to Texas. But today we have a story about grandmothers and their hands. It's from the book. Rev Love, do you have the author there?
Yeah, Stories from My Grandmother's Hands by Resmaa Menakem.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it lifts up other names for grandmothers from all over the African diaspora. Diaspora means the often forced dispersion of or spread of the people from their original homeland.
You might also notice that the artist has chosen to emphasize the hands, so they're bigger than they would be in life.
And you might wonder why the artist chose to not include the eyes in the faces.
not showing the eyes, is a signature feature of illustrator Leroy Campbell's art.
Throughout the book, we are being shown ways grandmothers embody resilience and nurture it in their families.
My grandmother's hands are big like sunrise, with fingers thick and coarse, like the cornrows braided into her silver gray hair.
My grandmother's hands picked cotton.
My own grandmother, this is me personally, lived on a dairy farm and got up at 5 in the morning every day, rain, snow, even hail, to milk the cows.
My granny's hands rest on her belly as she hums and sighs, rocks and sways like leaves swirling in the breeze.
My grandmother's hands left handprints on my heart.
My big mama's hands cook collard greens, macaroni and cheese, and fried chicken, and make pitchers of fresh squeezed lemonade.
My grandmother's hands sure could cook.
Those sound like some flavorful dishes mentioned in the book, and I got to learn about those dishes from my father-in-law. May his memory be for a blessing. His birthday anniversary was this week, February 3rd. He would cook, he would grow first and then cook the collards and then put them in the freezer. And his grandchild loves to eat collards, like from like a little age. Can you believe that? But in my family growing up, we didn't have anything like that. In fact, my grandmother would feed us what was called spaghetti with milk and butter. Like as bland as you can get, especially, that was a special thing when you were sick, that you would get. I mean, we liked it, so we'd eat it other times too, but.
My abuela's hands turn the pages of books that lull me to sleep with stories of far-off lands and magical kingdoms.
My grandmother's hands taught me to dream big.
My Gigi's hands type beautiful messages, send heartfelt well wishes, and place stamps with brown faces on cards to family and friends.
Kind of like the messages that we're inviting you to send to immigrants. My grandmother's hands held memories.
I wonder what memories your grandparents shared with you.
Let that sink in for a moment. What memories your grandmother shared with you? Or grandfathers? Or aunties? Uncles? My avo's hands cradle my face, pinch my cheeks, make me smile out loud.
I never liked the pinching. But my grandmother's hands brought me joy.
Think about how your grandparents showed you love through touch. Whether you always liked it or not, what ways did they show you love through touch?
My Oma's hands snap and clap, brushing against one another while she taps her feet and laughs like fireworks.
My grandmother's hands made music.
My own grandmother played the organ and was super excited when I learned to play it too.
My Nana's hands push and pull, glide and guide me down curvy sidewalks toward spaces where I can pause and be still.
My grandmother's hands showed me how to soothe my soul.
My grandmother, and it was passed on to my parents, would soothe my soul by rubbing my back to help me fall asleep at night. And sometimes tracing letters, usually my name, on my back. And I would fall asleep as my mind tried to pick out the letters.
My grand's hands made shadow puppets and finger paint gardens of colorful flowers.
My grandmother's hands were creative.
My own grandmother made quilts that have been passed down to my family.
My grandmother also was an amazing crafter, and she passed that on to my mother, who made the most amazing Halloween costumes every year. You should see my George Brett costume when the Kansas City Royals won the World Series. That would have been 1984, I think. I would have been 8. And she passed it on. One of my sisters also sews to this day.
My grandma's hands wrap me up in a blanket of love and plant me in the now like a deeply rooted tree.
My grandmother's hands always reminded me to breathe, to rest in this love.
Today is my pleasure to introduce Derwin Overton, Executive Director of OAR, Opportunities, Alternatives, and Research. OAR has been operating for over 50 years and currently provides services to Fairfax County, Loudoun, and Prince William counties. Their vision statement is a world where communities impacted by the justice system provide equitable opportunities for all people to lead fulfilling lives.
Thank you, Dottie, for that introduction. Good morning to each and every one of you. Thank you for this opportunity to share with you a little bit of information about OAR, Opportunities, Alternatives, and Resources. We're a community organization that provides services for people who've been incarcerated and their family members. We have 2 locations. One is located in Fairfax County by the Adult Detention Centers. The other one is located in Leesburg. When I think about OAR and the work that I do, I think about the world that we live in right now and the needs for people to have compassion, grace, and mercy for the individuals that may have did things that they need forgiveness and another opportunity in order to enhance their lives and the lives of their children. We are over 1 million people incarcerated in this country, and there's 2.5 children represented for each of those individuals. So one of the best ways of breaking this cycle of crime is to reach up and help your fellow man and woman so that we in turn could help and benefit the children that have no reason to suffer because of the wrongdoings of adults.
I love me some grandmothers, but that's too many grandmothers raising children, y'all.
It's a whole lot of them. At OAR, I've been with OAR for 22 years. The reason why I can get up every day and go to work is because I know that I'm making a difference and an impact in the lives of individuals that are justice involved. It is very, very important to me to make sure that I mitigate the impact of the judicial system because of who you're looking at. The judicial system has been horrible to minorities and black males that look like me, but it's also been horrible to anybody who's been involved and engaged in the judicial system. So it's about helping anybody and everybody who needs the opportunity to get a hand up and an opportunity to move forward as far as life is concerned. The last thing I'll share with you today is a quick story about a person that has taken the full opportunity of OAR and nurtured it into something wonderful. We have an individual in our agency who started off as a client because they were shoplifting and had other issues and challenges with substance abuse. After they finished our community service program, they in turn decided, you know what, I want to volunteer at OAR. They came on and they volunteered. After volunteering for a while at OAR, they said, I want to do more. The next thing that they did is they applied for a job and they became a case manager. This is about an 8-year story. To this day, this person is now the second in charge in OAR and leads us with passion and integrity, accountability, belief that people could change, are all the things that she puts into our organization, and it's a representative of the story of who we are, what we do, and how we do it. I thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to share this with you. Again, Dottie, I thank you for all your wonderful help and everything that you do, not only for OAR, but for the world itself. And I thank you for your time this morning. Bless you all.
Phyllis said, music is the weapon. Music is the weapon. Music is the weapon of the future. Phyllis said, if you think I'm going to change or compromise, they're making me stronger. Fela said, brothers and sisters, the secret of life is to have no fear. We all have to understand that.
So I want to go back to last January for a moment. Amid the flurry of executive orders, remember that? The end of last January, I started listening to hip hop on my headphones to recenter my nervous system, to survive the traumatizing turmoil, the flood, the deluge, the onslaught. It was Doechii at first, who was new to me. I discovered her because she was doing the circuit of late night shows ahead of winning the Grammy for Best Rap Album. And then the Super Bowl happened, just like it's going to happen this afternoon. And a year ago, Kendrick Lamar performed the halftime show. So for the next month or two, I listened nearly every day to Kendrick's just released album, GNX, short for Grand National, which for those of you who don't know, I didn't know, is a kind of car. Add in some throwback Outkast and some rap française from the 1990s. I love to listen to French rap. In case you're wondering, I don't speak French. It's about the rhythm and the flow. I had myself a spiritual practice that was healing and liberating at the same time. But why? How did listening to hip hop, always on headphones, center and save me? So I developed a theory, which I'm going to share with you in a moment. But first, I'm going to make sure you know what EMDR is. Anybody know? Got some therapists here maybe who know at least, some people who've received it. EMDR is a methodology for treating trauma, PTSD and other kinds of trauma, through the use of bilateral stimulation. It was developed, pioneered by Dr. Francine Shapiro in 1987, and since then it's become a well-respected, research-supported, evidence-based way to transform traumatic experiences, to heal, to embody resilience. Bilateral stimulation can happen with light that causes the eyes to dart back and forth from left to right, right to left. Or a person can hold a vibrator in each hand that buzzes from hand to hand in a regular rhythm and intensity. Sound through headphones can also be used. You can even tap your body. Here's the thing. Humans have experienced trauma throughout the entirety of human history. So what did they do before EMDR? So here's where my theory comes in. My experience listening to hip hop, or actually any polyrhythmic music, led me to believe that this way of using music is a traditional cultural form of wisdom that has existed throughout history. Think about it. Hip-hop itself emerged and gained popularity along with the Walkman. Could it be that inner-city black youth and eventually people of all ethnicities understood this at a bodily level and created a musical form that helped them embody resilience in the midst of the inhumane violence of structural racism and economic oppression? It certainly seemed to be helping me to embody resilience in the face of fascist executive orders that were unnecessarily and cruelly increasing suffering throughout the world. So I'm doing this practice throughout the year with my headphones on. And then, in October, Jad Abumrad, at the end of October, most well known as the creator and host of Radiolab, releases the podcast Fela Kuti, Fear No Man, in which, among other things, he explores the idea that Fela's music, with its dense polyrhythms that repeat without change from anywhere from 20 minutes to hours at a time. Fela, get this, Fela once has his band play one song for 24 hours straight without stopping. So Abumrad explores the idea that this music, this polyrhythmic groove, had the power to alter the listener's state, to drop them into a place of meditative focus where they were able to integrate the traumas of Nigeria's authoritarian regime. Now I'm guessing that many of you, most of you even, have no idea who Fela Kuti is. Am I right? That would not be the case anywhere in Africa. From the 1970s until his death in 1997, and even today, Fela Kuti was so popular, is so popular in Africa. It's as if you were to take the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, and Michael Jackson, and Madonna, and Prince, and Taylor Swift, and roll them all into one. I don't mean musically, I just mean that Fela Kuti is that popular, that influential throughout Africa. And Fela was also a political revolutionary, like Nelson Mandela, like the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., like Malcolm X. In fact, he was inspired by all those people. Earlier this week, as part of accepting the Grammy's Lifetime Achievement Award on behalf of his father, I mentioned earlier, the first African to ever win that award, Fela's son, Femi Kuti, said, Fela was never about the music. He didn't see any love story. I love that. He didn't see any love story that was more important than the suffering he saw on the streets. He didn't want to pick up a gun. He didn't want to kill anybody. So he now came with the phrase, music is the weapon of the future. I now think he saw his music as an arsenal to attack corruption. Music is the weapon. And it was. The Nigerian government found Fela's music so dangerous that throughout his life he was thrown in jail, get this, over 100 times. He was beaten countless times. His family members and members of his band were beaten. And Fela had a huge band with dancers and a stage crew, upwards of 100 people that all lived together communally at his home, which he had declared a sovereign nation within Nigeria, the Calacuta Republic. So what, other than naming his home as a sovereign nation, what did Fela do that Nigerians' authoritarian government felt was so dangerous to their rule? So this is where polyrhythmic music, functioning like an everyday person's EMDR, comes in. People would crowd into the Shrine, Fela's club, in a working class neighborhood in Lagos, open air with a tin roof over the stage, but no roof over the dance floor. It was getting warm in here earlier, and I wanted to stay warm so it'd feel more like Nigeria, like we were in the Shrine, but it's cooled down a little bit. Abumrad describes what happens in the club, the liberating, transformative power of music, and I'm going to quote at length here. Fela arrives, takes the stage with 35 other musicians, and he begins a riff that will last most of the night. Fela starts his music, this repetitive pattern, the power of the musical ostinato, Music is all about structure, EMDRand tells us, structuring the relationship between notes and chords and melodies. But here you have structure on an entirely different level, almost like a phenomenological structure. You can tell that there's a different kind of intention behind this paradigm of groove. For the first 15 minutes, it just loops, the ostinato going round and round, round and round. Ostinato in Italian, EMDRand tells us, means basically stubborn. The loops stubbornly repeat. And at first, it's not so bad. It's kind of grounding, actually. But then the natural response is to want some change. Like, can we go to the next section now? Please? Please? No? This is what Buddhists call our monkey mind, EMDRand narrates. Our monkey mind wants distraction. It wants anything to keep us from having to live with our own thoughts. But the music, Fela's music, doesn't give us that. It doesn't change. It only builds. Layers get added piece by piece, instrument by instrument. And at some point, a number of minutes in, you arrive at this mysterious moment where you stop wanting it to change. This, according to EMDRand, is phase 2 of the process. Now that part of you that wants novelty starts to notice things. Like, whoa, listen to all the interlocking parts of this groove. Whoa, the ostinatos, they're like machine gears, but they don't grind. The gears are timed in between each other so they just subtly fit into the little gaps and holes. The way the conga player plays off the shaker, call and response, the way the 3 guitar lines spin around endlessly, like gears in some kind of higher level clock. And you think to yourself, my God, this groove is the whole world. This, phase 2, this is the trance state. And usually when we talk about trance, EMDRand points out, we mean a kind of dulling of our senses. But it's actually the opposite. It's actually a state of hyper-focus. You're noticing things. You're hearing things you've never heard before because your neurons are being rewired and you are open. You are open in a way you're rarely open. And it's at this very moment that Fela begins to sing. Remember, you're 10, 15, 20 minutes in now. In comes his voice, booming like the voice of God, dropping wisdom in Nigerian pidgin English. Fela sings in a gravelly, low-pitched voice, and he sings about things that no one else ever mentions, not any newspaper or any columnist. He talks about the United Nations, about Thatcher, about Reagan, about Nigerian history. It's like a history lesson that has been suppressed by the authoritarian government, and now you're hearing it. And this is phase 3. And because you are open to really hearing what he is saying, it sinks in. And the listener starts thinking, why did we not know this? Why aren't we all thinking about this stuff? And in that way, as the final piece of this progression, he gives you a new conception of what your life can be. Rap music does this too, y'all, right? That's the lyrics over top of the beat. Moses Ochuno, a professor of history at Vanderbilt University, describes how the authoritarian terror and corruption, that in the beginning it shocks you, you feel outraged, but over time there's a numbing effect, a dulling effect. And that outrage, that shock, this is what would come back as people listened to Fela's music. As they were hypnotized in the trance state, they would hear Fela's words, and those words would have the impact they should have, because Fela had dropped them into that meditative state, had calmed the people's nervous systems with the groove, with the power of the ostinato, so that they could take in the horror without being overtaken by it. So they could rest in this love and take in the horror. Now, Fella was also a trickster who would turn reality upside down again and again. Again and again, he would take the violence, the abuse, the corruption of the ruling class in Nigeria, often exhibited directly onto him, onto his body. That violence directed onto him, onto his body, onto the bodies of those he loved, those closest to him. And he would find a way. I think that was Fella trying to give us a message, maybe, to drop in some news. He would find a way through music and acts of political resistance to turn the violence, the corruption back on the oppressors. EMDRand even shares that he's come to think of Fella like a trickster god, playing tricks on the power structure, except in this case, where the violence is real, where the stakes could not be higher, where it's flesh and blood, where the pain hurts, and where the tricks, they're not just funny. They build worlds. There's a category of Fella's tricksterness that I think of as political resistance as performance art. Just as Fella once had his band play the same groove nonstop for 24 hours, which is the kind of endurance test performance artists do, in case you're not familiar with that. In response to the authoritarianism, Fella would manufacture events to disrupt the regime. The two best examples of this from the podcast involve human excrement. In one case, dollar green in color, from weed or spinach, who can know? Except that it's expensive. The other involving leaving human feces at the doorstep of a corrupt record label executive. I'll give you what you're giving me, Fella is saying. The humor in these spectacular performance art pranks is sublime. I don't feel like I can convey it fully or concisely, or in ladylike or gentlemanly language. But if you'd like to have a good laugh, I suggest you listen to the podcast episode, Tricksters Make the World. So back in the 1970s and 80s, there weren't any smartphones to capture police brutality, government brutality on camera. So Fella, we figured out another way to do it with his music. I'll give you some examples. On November 23rd, 1974, the Nigerian government sent dozens of heavily armed police to attack Fella's compound, the Kalakuta Republic, tear gassing the house, hacking away at Fella's barbed wire fence with axes. Fella's people resisted throwing things down at the police from the roof. But Fella would end up in jail for 3 days, beaten once again, and once he was released, he would turn the attack into a song, Kalakuta Show, which is almost a word-for-word journalistic accounting of the raid. This recounting of the raid in trance-inducing rhythmic mantras acts almost like a boomerang, taking the authoritarian regime's violence and turning it back on them. In fact, when Fella came out with a bandage on his arm and a bandage on his head that almost looked like a papal hat, thousands of people, he was standing on a car, thousands of people gathered to journey with him back to his home. Fella even did this with his mother's death. His mother, who was a revolutionary before him, and actually, if you listen to the podcast, there's a whole episode about how her revolutionary actions and that slyness, that tricksteriness, that saying what couldn't be said, often in vulgar language, to shock people, he got that from his mother and other grandmothers, we could say, other elder women in Nigeria who did it before. So on February 18th, 1977, in an unprecedentedly brutal assault, 1,000 soldiers battered their way into Calcutta and razed it to the ground, beating and raping people, brutally beating and arresting Fela, and throwing his 77-year-old mother out of a second-floor window. Just over a year later, on April 13th, 1978, Fela's mother would die from the injuries she suffered in that attack. So what does Fela do? With 60 supporters, including members of his family, he takes his mother's coffin, or a replica of it, and deposits it on the headquarters of Nigeria's president. Of course, he and his supporters are brutally beaten by soldiers. But what does Fela do next? He writes a song about it. Coffin for Head of State. Once again, to boomerang back their violence back on them. And these songs created new understandings about the struggle under Nigeria's authoritarian regime. When he would lock horns with the state and turn that into a song, inside those songs, Abraham tells us, he invented a whole new language that helped people understand their world and what they were up against. Words like beasts of no nation. Is there a better way to describe multinational corporations than beasts of no nation? Or everything scatter. That moment when the center just can't hold anymore. Government magic. The way that governments can rewrite history, distorting it. Army arrangement for the repeating cycles of corruption. Opposite people, colonial mentality. You and I may have no idea what these words are referring to, but these are words that to this day you hear everywhere in Lagos. Words that lift up the true insanity sold to citizens by an authoritarian regime as if what's happening is normal and right. So I shared with you, I hope you could feel it a little bit. I hope the music, this ostinatos that we've been having have helped you feel it a little bit. The transformative power of the interlocking rhythmic patterns in Fela's music. Now Jad Abumrad, he sees a similar pattern repeating in Fela's interactions with the Nigerian government. He says there is a very clear pattern. A raid happens, he makes a song about it, that then creates another raid. Raid happens, he makes a song about it, that then creates another raid, and he makes a song about it. The music reflects the oppression and traumas of living under siege, decrying the government's actions, and the government reacts to that by placing it under further siege. It's not just cause and effect, Abumrad said, it's somehow like a structural pattern, as in music. And you have to wonder, or at least I wonder, if Fela was on some level encouraging the violence as a way of drawing attention to the structural violence that was happening every day in Nigeria. That's a time-honored technique. We see that in our own civil rights movement. People marching, holding their dignity, committed to nonviolence while dogs are set upon them, while water hoses are pointed at them and knock them over. So the world will see not just that violence, but the hidden violence that segregation in this country caused every single day, the ripples of which continue in health disparities and mass incarceration to this day. So what Fela does in his music, but also with the raids and the song about it and the raids and the song about it, is create a mantra to wake people up. He uses the power of the ostinato as a performance art action to heal and to liberate. So I want to close with just one more story. The podcast begins with the story of Dele Shosemi. Dele's father was a banker who was murdered right before breaking the news of a huge corruption scandal when Dele was 12, hiding in a closet, emerging to find his father's bloody body shot through with stab wounds. Several years later, he meets Fela, who asks, "How is your mother coping?" Who tells Dele he should be receiving psychological care for trauma, that his mother should be receiving a pension for his father's work at the bank. Now, Dele can't afford to see a psychologist. He can't even get piano lessons, which he would love to have. Instead, he becomes devoted to Fela. He listens obsessively to his records, learning all the parts on the piano. And while just a teenager, he joins Fela's band as a keyboardist. It's getting a little hot in here. We're getting to Nigeria now, aren't we? All of Fela's musicians were required to play one riff over and over and over without deviation, so that the interlocking was seamless of all the different riffs. And if they weren't perfect, if they made a mistake, Fela would fine them. Dele said if you got fined twice in a week, that was your whole pay. But Dele describes that experience not as traumatic itself or even stressful. He describes that experience as his therapy. He says it's what healed him, what liberated him. That as he repeated the riff over and over again, his breath would sync up with it. He even says that he would slow his heartbeat to match the kick drum, the bass. Ba-boom, ba-boom. He says it's as if with every breath, he's receiving the message, it's going to be okay. It's okay. It's okay. Hang in there, hang in there, hang in there, hang in there. It's okay. There's more to come. It's okay. It's okay. And that's the message I want you to take with you when you leave this sanctuary today. It's okay. Hang in there, hang in there, hang in there. It's okay. There's more to come. It's okay. It's okay. I want you to find your ostinato. Maybe it's breath meditation or energy work. Maybe it's chanting. There's a love, holding me, holding all, or a love supreme. Maybe it's walking or biking. Walking is bilateral stimulation, is EMDR, so is biking. Maybe it's just swaying when you're at church, when the song comes on. Maybe it's drumming, right to left, right to left, right, left, right, left, or dancing, or just putting the headphones on, like I do, turning off all the lights, lying in bed, and letting the rhythms put you right again. It's okay. Hang in there, hang in there, hang in there, hang in there. It's okay. There's more to come. It's okay. It's okay.
Please rise now in body or in spirit. And if you are comfortable connecting with your neighbor, I encourage you to do so. And join in our closing words. As we extinguish our chalice, I invite you to join in our community blessing with these words from David Bumbaugh. This church is dedicated to the proposition that behind all our differences and beneath all our diversity, there is a unity that makes us one and binds us forever together in spite of time, death, or the space between the stars. We pause now in silent witness to that unity. Now that we've gathered together in this welcoming and inclusive spiritual home, let us go out into the world inspired to share our values.